How do I describe my mother? How do I pay tribute to the person who gave me life? How can I say thanks for the things he has done for me? Things so undeserved, yet he came to show his love for me. The voices of a million angels could not express my gratitude. All that I am or could ever hope to be, I owe it all to you. My mom was a strong Christian and held a deep love for her family and an even deeper love for her God. As my dad would say, she left a rich legacy for us to share. A great part of that legacy was in her family, whether you called her daughter, mother, sister, Amy, or Nana. She had a special relationship with you. Over the last few months, I came to appreciate my parents' marriage even more. Even when she was at her lowest, all my dad had to do was come in the room, and she would smile. She wouldn't wake up for some people, but if he came in the room, she would smile. My parents were married 1 month shy of 50 years, and she was trying desperately to survive until their anniversary. They were childhood sweethearts and have loved each other their entire lives. My parents were my example of how to make a relationship work. They were never perfect, but they worked to keep their love going strong. They were the epitome of their wedding vows, and they truly stayed together in sickness and in health. I remember a day in her hospital where they just sat holding hands. She was weak and didn't feel well, but she perked it up for him. For you are flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. There's no one greater. Proverbs 18:22 says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. My dad will tell you to this day that she was his good thing. There is no greater love, no greater love. My mother's love for her children was exceptional. We each had our own special place in her life and our own role. She would often introduce us as her attorney daughter, her doctor daughter, and her minister or her social worker daughter. Every accomplishment we made in life, she was right there cheering us on. When Adrian and I were in college, at the same time, my mother would get on the highway, picking Adrian up first, and then crossing over I-74 to come pick me up, and then I would drive us all back home. When I went to graduate school, she gave me her car, the newer car, because she wanted to make sure that I could get around to class safely, that I could get where I needed to go. She told me that she wanted to make sure that I was safe. When I went to medical school, she took me, and when I struggled, she cheered me on, and more importantly, she prayed for me. She prayed me through. She often told me that I should have gone to nursing school first, because then I would know how to be a better doctor. But I never listened. And she would tell anybody who talked to her, you know, I told her to go to nursing school, but she didn't do it. It's not that she didn't want me to be a doctor, but she wanted me to be the best at everything that I do. She wanted me to have all of my bases covered. When she was sick, and I would rush to leave work to make sure that I could come see about her, she would tell me, now don't rush too fast, be a good doctor, and don't kill anybody. When Victoria was young, she was slow to read. So even though it was hard for her, she sent her baby to her aunt in Tennessee because she knew that her aunt could get her to read better, and what she couldn't do, somebody else could do for her. M is for the many things she gave me. O is for how openly she loved. T is for the tears she shed to save me. H is for her heart so full of love. E is for the early times that she fed me. R is for the rest she did for me. Put them all together, they spell mother. My mother was our example of how to be a good mother. Her love was always flowing. There never was a question of how much she loved us and was proud of each of us. In her last months, every physician, nurse, and CNA knew about her family because she often shared with them how blessed she was. She said, I didn't used to tell people about my children because I didn't want to be seen as a bragger. But I've decided I've lived so long that I have something to be bragging about. And this is my testimony. Each of her grandchildren had a special place in her heart, and she was present for each and every one of their births. Alicia, her first grandchild, filled her with more joy and laughter than she ever imagined, and she said often that being a Nana was better than she knew. And she decided to call herself Nana when Alicia was born, because she said Alicia had too many grandmothers at that time, so she didn't want to be confused with anybody else. She was Nana. Asia went to school with her from her first grade to her sixth grade when my mother was about to retire. So Asia was her heart, and she told people all the time, Asia is my heart, but Asia, I want you to be better. So even when she was sick, she would say, Asia, you're my heart, I want you to be better. Erin was her brave spirit, her strong-willed child. She often told of a story one time when she was taking Erin home, and Erin was supposed to be in her car seat. And Erin decided to get out of her car seat, and she was about 1.5. She decided to get out of her car seat and was in the back of her minivan, and my mother was trying to drive and said, Erin, I can't pull over. I'm not at a place where I can pull over. So she bribed her. And once she bribed her, Erin got back in her seat and they went on their way. She said, that was the only thing I could think of to do, but it worked. When her first grandson, Emmanuel, was born, she got up when I gave her the call at about 4 o'clock in the morning because it was important for her to be there. When I told her we're about to go to surgery, she said, I'm on my way. She always laughed about David as an infant because she kept him while I was studying for a test. And at about 6 p.m. every day, David decided he didn't care who it was, even if it was his Nana. He was tired, and he wanted his mommy, and he would become inconsolable. We don't know how he knew o'clock, but he did. When she was sick and in the hospital for the last few months, her grandchildren would come in and she would smile at them. She would pray for them even before she prayed for herself. We would have evening devotions. She would pray for her husband. She would pray for her sisters. Then she would pray for her children and her grandchildren. And then she would pray for herself. But most importantly, she wanted her family to continue being blessed. My mother prayed for me, had me on her mind, took the time and prayed for me. I'm so glad she prayed. I'm so glad she prayed. I'm so glad she prayed for me. People often remark to us that we took great care of our mother. We were only able to do what she taught us to do. When my grandfather was sick and unable to drive, she and my aunt figured out a way to change their schedules so that they could take him to and fro. They didn't put him on transportation. They didn't put him anywhere else. They took care of him. When my grandmother was in hospice, we figured out a way to get people in, and we took care of them. So when the decision was made to put my mother in hospice, the one thing she requested was, please don't put me in a nursing home, please. My father, without a pause, without a moment, promised her that he would do everything in his power. And we would take care of her. So we took care of her at home. She looked at us as she knew her time was getting near, and she told us, I've counted the cost. I know where I'm going, and I'm okay. She knew that her salvation was sure. There was nothing that she was worried about. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know he holds my future, and life is worth the living because he